So welcome to the Untangled podcast, where we take the idea of studying Jesus as philosophy, and then we get into the practical nitty gritty of how that actually functions in ministry. And so I'm excited. I've got Mr. Lawrence Wills back with me again, and we actually do ministry together. And so he's just a great guest to kind of help me get into those nitty gritty weeds and things like that. And so today, in the last episode, I don't know if you remember this, but in the last episode, you said, you finished by saying, I think I'm ready to get into the weeds a little bit.
I did say that.
And so I thought today, why don't we touch on a topic? Why don't we look at a topic and say, all right, how would we take this new philosophy, this approach to following Jesus, and practically apply it in something that would be like weeds? And so I thought a good example of that for me would be secular music, right? Yeah, secular music, right? Okay. So everywhere you go, everybody's got a stand on it, whatever it might be, right? But in the philosophy, or what I call the goodness gospel, following Jesus as philosophy, in that model, one of the biggest things you find is that I never tell people to stop anything, right? Instead, I tell them to start, right? Because for me, Jesus gave instructions, not commands. And so instructions are things that you should start doing, right, in order to accomplish things. And so when it comes to secular music, I thought, how would that play out? And so here's how I think it plays out. I would never tell any of the kids, any of the families, anybody we work with, I would never tell them to stop listening to secular music. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Instead, I would tell them to start. And in fact, I would tell them to listen more. But I would say, instead of listening to the music, what I want you to do is listen for messages and themes and things like that you hear in the music that align with how you've chosen to live your life as a follower of Jesus. So I would say, listen to as much music as you can. Listen to secular artists. Just listen. Keep listening as much as you can and begin to listen for messages that align with how you've chosen to live. And as you do that, I would tell you, begin to listen to more and more music that actually gives messages that align with how you've chosen to live. And I would say, that's how I might tell people to handle secular music. Don't stop doing it. Start doing it, right? Start listening for more. And that's maybe a practical way of how we might deal with secular music in the USC or in other ministries that I might work with. And so for me, that's kind of getting into the weeds of an actual issue of how we might take this goodness gospel and apply it. So I'd love to know how that lands on you. Your first thought was a laugh? Okay.
It was.
Right.
It was a lot. It was a lot to take in.
All right, a lot to take in. Okay. All right.
So what do you say? Well, first of all, how did you land here?
Okay. All right.
And I don't mean that in a bad way at all.
No, it's a great way.
Reverse engineer for me.
Yeah. So I think two ways, right? So the first way is the basic understanding that if you follow Jesus as philosophy, then you really are less concerned with telling people what they should stop. So you're more concerned with telling them what they should start. And so I started to say, man, what would I tell people if I really wanted them to get the best out of the music they could listen to? So that's one of the starts, right? The other is, and you're probably going to hate this, but there is a secular artist that I call the prophet, right? His name is Nas. Yeah. I call Nas the prophet, right? Because if you listen to a lot of what Nas says, for example, right? Nas has this song and it's called 40 Side, right? And I would say if you are not firm in your belief, do not jump into 40 Side. But in 40 Side,
touch on that.
Right, you're going to touch on that. All right. But in 40 Side, he says this line, a few lines that for me, when he said them, I heard the book of Ecclesiastes, right? Nas says in the song, he says, you're stuck in illusion, attached to something that ain't even that, right? And then he says, South Beach, Amalfi, Maldives, Nassau, same beach, unless you are after something most men can't see. And then he says, shorty off the block, shorty off the runway, same freak. And then he says, we all got access to open doors like we share the same key, right? But the line that stuck out to me immediately was when he says, you're stuck in illusion, attached to something that ain't even that, right? What immediately came to my mind was Solomon in Ecclesiastes, where he's like, yo, it's all vanity, right? This thing that you think you're chasing, everything that you think you're trying to get is not what you think it is, right? In other words, you're stuck in illusion, attached to something that ain't even that, right? And then he goes on and expands just like Ecclesiastes, right? Ecclesiastes is like, there's a time to grow. There's nothing new under the sun. It's all the same, right? And Nas says, you know what? South Beach, Amalfi, Nassau, Maldives, same beach, right? In other words, I've experienced all these different places. The beaches you think you're trying to go to, I've been to them all. They're all the same beach. You are stuck in illusion attached to something that's not even that, right? There's nothing new under the sun. And so as a result, he begins to lay out in his verse the recognition that we also find in Ecclesiastes, that what you're looking for is not actually this physical thing that you think that it is, but you're looking for the truth, the deeper thing behind it. And that's what he says in the song. And that's when I heard Ecclesiastes. And so for me, listening to secular music led me to find, oh man, look at this message that seems to match up with what I find in the book of Ecclesiastes.
But we also work with kids. First of all,
right, to be clear,
not taking nothing away from Nas. I like Nas.
All right. I mean, how could you not, man? I told you I call him the prophet, man. You gotta,
now we can argue.
Okay, well, we want to do both. Let's do it. I call him the prophet, man.
But well, we work with kids, as you know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you also mentioned another thing too. You warned people if they were not, what did you say? Deep in your faith?
Yeah, stable in your faith, whatever it might be, yeah.
We work with kids that are not stable in their faith at all. So how do you take that same advice and apply it to some of the students that we work to? So if I use the blanket term, and I'm not saying, well, I'm just kind of paraphrasing what you were saying, like, I'm not telling you to stop listening to Nas. What I'm telling you to do is listen to more Nas and try to find some good messaging within the songs, right?
Right.
And then they come back and ask me, where do I hear Corinthians and Uchiwali? And then I have to say, whoa. Because remember, like, these are young adults.
Yeah.
And we were young at one point, too.
Yeah.
If there's a bunch of stuff that I wasn't allowed to do.
Right.
But if you gave me a chance, I'll find a way to spend it.
Well, I think in my mind, right, that approach, we can argue, doesn't work, right? To be clear, as much as we would like to believe it, you cannot really legislate morality into people. Don't listen to this. Don't do that. But what I would say is, hey, and this is how I think we practically help our students. We say, hey, listen to the music we play around here, right? You might get some KB. You might get some No Big Deal. You might get some, I mean, if you're really feeling the rush, you might get some Maverick City or whatever it might be, right? You might get that here at the USC, right? And so we say, hey, listen to the messages that we're saying to you, right? This is how these messages resonate with the way Jesus said that we should live our lives, right? Now, take those messages, and when you go home and you're listening to your music, see how often you see those messages appeal, right? And then they would say, well, why? Why would I need to listen to more of that? And then I say, oh, now I'm really excited because now I get to not only teach you about secular music, I get to teach you what Jesus taught. And I say, oh, Jesus has this whole verse where he talks about the eye gate, right? And
that was going to be my next
right. And what you see, what you let into you can actually affect your spiritual self, right? The essence of what God wants for you in your spiritual level. And so I say, oh, understand he uses eye gate, right? But the principle is the same. What you allow into you begins to shape you. So I would say begin to listen for people who are going to say things that align with how you've chosen to live your life, right? So every time you're listening, if you're listening to say, man, does that align? Number one, you need to know what are the things that I've decided to live my life according to, right? If I'm a follower of Jesus, and I'm like, oh, so now you got to go in, you got to look at Jesus, right? So you get that aspect. But then you also get, well, I'm not just casually listening anymore. I'm actually going to listen. And when I hear messages that don't align with that, I can reject them instead of just allowing them to come into me. So now you've changed how they listen to music. And then you've encouraged them to feed themselves by listening for. I want you to listen for this and then listen to more of it because Jesus says if you protect your eye gate and your ear gate, you'll be healthy, right? And so that's kind of how we might do that, right? Instead of saying, don't listen to secular music, which what we really want, right, is for them to feed themselves with things that would align with how they've chosen to live. But instead of doing that, we just say, don't do this. And I say, oh no, let's not don't do them. Let's tell them to do this, and then explain to them why it's a good way to live, because that's how following Jesus as philosophy works. Hey, this is what we do because Jesus said this is a good way to live, right? And so by doing that, that's how we might deal with secular music at the ministry level.
Do you think that's the part that was missing? Because as we came up in church, or at least as I came up in church, that was one of the things.
I came up in church too, man.
I'm not saying that you didn't.
You just try to question. I'm real church kid.
I was trying to dive.
church kid on another level.
I was trying to dodge
I could get
the
in the walls in my church. Okay. I could get in the walls.
See, now you're getting creepy. I was just trying to pass a little age gap.
No. Okay.
No, what I was saying is kind of like, you know how we came up, anything that didn't glorify God. Holiness, yeah. Anything that couldn't be presented as holy, we were told to just do away with altogether. Do you feel like they were wrong in their stance?
No, I think we're going after the same thing, right?
Are you just saying like in terms of how they went about it was somewhat questionable too?
Yeah. I think that was the culture of the day, right? But that's what I think is interesting is we act like the gospel doesn't change, so how we deliver the gospel shouldn't either, right? And I'm saying, oh no, culture changed, right? When I was growing up, I can remember when some of my OGs, they ride down the street with the speakers. As soon as they hit the block where my church is, turn them joints down. Right? Get past the block, turn that mug back up, right? The church had a different type of respect that it did, right? Because of what had been elevated. And the truth is we have no one else to blame because Romans tells us, because of you, my name is blasphemed among the heathen, right? So something, I'm just saying, we have to own that as Christians. Something we did along the way between when me and you grew up to where we are now has caused people to have less respect and for Christianity, for church, for Jesus in that way, right? And so if we still think that we get to hold the kind of moral authority without dialogue, without relationship, without care, right? If we think we get to hold that same kind of moral authority in this culture that we did back then and say, no, we just get to tell you what not to do, I'm going to say that doesn't work for this culture because something happened, shifts in the culture, right? And I think, like I said, we have no one else but ourselves to blame. But I would tell you, I don't see OGs turning the music down when they drive by churches anymore, right? I don't see people respecting a pastor just because he's a pastor anymore, right? Something happened in the culture, right? So we went from this really holiness-based culture as a country, as a people, to something different. And in this culture, we still are trying to get them to do the same thing. We're trying to get them to fill their ear gate, to fill their eye gate with things that would align with the way Jesus wants for us to live, right? Except before we just told them, don't listen to the other stuff. And now I'm saying, oh, I'm not going to say don't listen to the other stuff. I'm going to say, listen to more stuff though. And listen to more stuff that aligns with this. And then what you might find is that it makes your soul, makes your spirit, makes your life feel really, really good. Because that's what I believe happens. When we can get Jesus and the things that he said to people, it feels really, really good. That's why I follow Jesus' philosophy, the philosophy of life, because it really works, man. That's the part. We act like we got to defend Jesus and Christianity and all this other stuff because somehow people could try it and it wouldn't work. And then I'm like, no, it works. It works, man. It works.
But again, back to the topic of
all right, sorry,
of the young people. I'm not saying that's wrong at all because I am following what you're putting down. But with younger people in their new walk with Christ,
right?
The more that you get into the weeds in terms of the stuff that they were used to, it kind of makes it harder for that transformation to come about where they have to renew themselves in their mind and die away with old habits and things of that nature. So, as you know, the power of music is just that. It's extremely powerful. It can change your mood. It can change a bunch of different things.
Without your permission in a lot of cases.
And without your permission, again. So, again, with a mind being that young, is the message more so like, no more Kanye West until you find something good, or it's like, hey, here's an example.
Yeah.
and everything should be modeled behind said example. How far do they get into the weeds before they realize, oh, maybe I shouldn't be listening to this person? Because I believe there's some good in Kanye West's music.
Yeah. Oh, man. I got a whole sermon on one of Kanye's songs, man. That mug is dope.
But if you put his whole catalog up, though,
Yeah, sure.
that's a lot of shit I would have to do to get to it.
But to be clear, man, we just had a Bible study on this at the USC. I think someone taught on it. But a lot of these issues are authorized liberty issues, right? In the sense that if you look, was it Romans 14, right? Paul does this whole, I think it's Romans 14, 1 Corinthians 14, one of them, right? I can't remember. It's either one of those. It's a 14 in it, right? We'll see if we can get Nate to put it up. All right. All right. But if you look at it, Paul literally spends this whole chapter and says, hey, some of y'all want to eat food that was offered to idols. Yo, go ahead and do that. That's fine. Hey, some of y'all want to worship on this day. Go ahead and do that. That's fine. None of that matters, right? What matters is the intention. And so when I think about it, I say it's not my job, right, to tell that young person where the line is. But my job is to be able to tell that young person, this is what you should be pursuing. Right. And so that's what I say. I'm like, dude, I don't know where the line is. If you can listen to Kanye's whole album and you find a way to make each one of those things line up with the truths that Jesus laid out for us to have a good life, I bet, yo, that's amazing for you.
That's Gold Digger is hard to do.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying it feels hard to me. But if you hear something that how like, well, man, Gold Digger, you know what he's really saying? I'm like, all right, bro, what's up?
It's tough, man.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying it's tough.
And if I'm 17, it's way tougher.
Yeah.
If I'm in middle school, that seems impossible.
But I guess the question I would ask is, would you rather have a middle schooler walking around trying to figure out how to go to his school dance, right, and not hear any secular music, to ride in the car with his family members who may listen to it and not hear any? Would you rather him, all his friends, go around singing and he's supposed to die? Or would you rather have a 14-year-old who's walking around saying, yo, man, hey, can I hear those lyrics again? I want to see if that helps me with how I'm living. What, you know what? That song right there, oh, that one doesn't seem to mesh with where I'm trying to live. That's good for me to know. I probably won't listen to that one again. Which would you rather prefer than walking around with?
I would prefer them. I would empower them. And I do see your point in that, too, because I do think that's one of the lingering effects from us being taught about secular music, the way that we were taught.
Yeah.
Not only we were taught not to listen to it, if we did listen to it.
It was a devil. Oh, my God.
And if you got friends that listen to
it. Exactly, man.
And if your mama keep listening to it. Like, I had a friend, and she was really serious about, like, not listening to secular music to the point where she threw her own music out. Mm-hmm. Everything she owned.
I did it a few times myself.
But she did not stop there.
Yeah.
She wanted to throw other people's music out.
That's extreme, man.
And it can be extreme, like I said, but I do think there's extremes on both sides. I do feel like there is some brevity to that, because there are some people who have to totally do away with secular music because of the hold that it does have on them. And I don't feel like that's talked about enough.
Yeah.
And I do feel like we should do more of that too. Like, the one thing that I am picking up from you that I totally agree with, that we should, like, just to frame it, how we frame some of these topics with our students is, again, we're not trying to tell you, be the deciding factor if you should continue to listen to Kanye West.
Right.
But what I'm trying to tell you to do is giving you some options.
Yeah, exactly right. And here, and not just options, instructions.
There we go.
Hey, don't just listen to music. And then we can go into, why not? Why don't I just listen to music? Oh, well, Jesus did this example, right, where he uses the eye. And he basically talks about how seeing things, even without you knowing, can help to figure out, can influence your spirit, right? And then I say, well, let's talk about music. You ever have music change your mood? You ever find yourself singing a song you shouldn't have? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's that. And I'm like, yeah, so music is also another example of something that can influence you, right? That can influence you spiritually, influence your soul, influence you physically without you even knowing it's occurring, right? So you don't necessarily want to just casually do it all the time if it can begin to shape you. What you want to do is begin to listen to it or listen for. That's my big thing, right? I love that concept, right? Listening for something, right? Because if you listen for something, it changes the intensity with which you listen to it, right? It's one of the fundamental rules I tell people at Untangled. I be like, I want you to listen differently. Don't listen to what we say. listen for what we say. And what I mean is, like in this example, right? In this example we're giving, how would this work and still show that God is good? And I would say, all right, could a good God say, hey, keep listening to what you're listening to, right? But what I want you to do is begin to listen to see how much of it lines up with what I've said, right? And then I tell you, and what I really want you to do is protect your ear gate. So begin to listen for it. And if it doesn't line up with what I said or how I want for you to live, I want you to shift, right? Shift away from that one and maybe replace it with somebody who you find does do that, right? Right? I think a good God could say that, right? Especially if he wanted to make sure his message got to everyone, right? So you came to a crowd of people, a good guy came to thousands, millions of people, right? Billions of people. And he says, hey, all of you, there's music out there. And you in Bangladesh, you ain't never heard none of the music in America, right? And you in America, you probably ain't never heard none of the Bangladeshi music. I don't even know if that's what you would call it, right? I'm using an example, right?
Okay. You're getting dangerous, but go ahead.
Right. But says, all right, you haven't heard any of this type of music. But what I want all of you to do, right, is I want all of you to listen to whatever music you're listening to. And I'd love for you to see if it aligns with how I said that you should live, right? And then I want you to feed yourself the type of music that would align with the way that I said to live, right? And I think a good guy could say that. And I think a good guy might say that.
I'm just throw a dart at it.
All right, throw a dart at it.
Where's the line?
I don't know.
So I mean it like this. So you're saying like, no, listen for more. Don't don't get bogged down on who you're listening to. Mm-hmm. Just listen for this, right?
Sure.
But what I'm asking, where's the line at? Because are you telling a child or you're telling a person that is new to Christ that they can still listen to R. Kelly? Like, where's the line? Is there a line? Like, because like, that's another thing that you're doing too. What you're asking for is something that's counterculture.
Right.
Which I love.
Right.
Because I'm a counterculture.
Well, that's the thing, is we love to, in Christianity, and that's and it's one of my frustrations, right? We love to line it, right? And the problem with the line is that we want to know how close a person can be at the line before we can consider it wrong or right.
It wasn't necessarily okay.
I mean, but that's our approach, right?
Like, no. That's exactly how it sounds too.
That's how we think, right? Where's the line? And I say, well, let's look at the word repentance actually, right? The word repentance is not a line, it's a direction, right? So I'm not saying don't listen to R. Kelly. I'm saying, can you listen to music that takes you in the direction of God, right? Okay. And so in that sense, yo, man, if you can do that, right? Romans 14 tells us that's an authorized liberty, bro. There is nothing explicitly about music, line, right? In the Bible. There is no explicit line, right? So that's an authorized liberty. And so how you choose to do it, the line is in your heart, right? And for some of us, for me, for a long time, right? Everybody will tell you I missed 1999 to 2021 as it relates to popular music.
So you missed all of music.
Yeah, pretty much, bro. I was Jesus only, Christian hip hop only. I literally went from like contemporary Christian to Jesus or to Christian hip hop, and that was it. That's all I listened to, right? And because for me at the time, that's where I needed to be, right? That was my own personal line. Mm-hmm. However, for other people, there was a friend of mine. We were youth pastoring together. We were co-youth pastors. Okay. And this dude just could not wait for the new Kendrick album to come out, right? I saw his heart. I saw him doing ministry on a regular basis, right? I didn't say to him, yo, man, you ain't even following Jesus. You a sinner, right? I didn't do that because I saw what he was doing, right? But my conviction was, yo, bro, you keep that Kendrick in your car, and when we in my car, we gonna ride something else, right? Like that's how we do, right? And so there isn't a line because repentance isn't a line; it's a direction, right? And so we are so fascinated with making sure people are walking on the holiness side of the line instead of pursuing God as a direction, right? And that's where I say Jesus is my life philosophy, right? And so by nature, that's not a line, right? That's a direction I'm following, right? And so along the way, stuff may fall off, right? Because I'm just walking this way, right? And so some stuff may fall off. I may pick up other stuff along the way, but there isn't a line because the line is in my heart, right? So what I want you to do more honestly is not fight yourself from the music, right? Don't you do it? Don't you hear it? Oh, you bobbed your shoulders to Bruno. You right. You bobbed your shoulders
Which
to
is
Bruno.
easy to do, by the way.
Hey, I mean, come
Very
on, man.
easy
Bruno,
to do.
hey, man, come on, man. You know you want to throw that pinky ring up, man. Come on, man.
I'm not going that far.
You're not going that? Okay, all right.
I'm not going that
but it's easy. That's what I'm saying. Bruno Mars, come on. And I had to tell myself, I don't like this song, right? Instead of saying, you know what? I can listen to this song, and what I can do is recognize, hey, everything in this song doesn't necessarily align, but musically, man, this mug is amazing. That dude voice is real cool. Man, this is a good song to ride in the car to. But for me, I know I get to a point all the time where I'm like, dude, I can't take no more. I just can't take no more. And I got to go straight. Well, KB's my default artist, man. I throw it on, right? And then I just ride to that for days on end because that's my line, right?
Okay.
That's my line. But what I would want is for everybody to be in pursuit of their line instead of me getting to set their line for them.
I like one thing that you said, and I think that's something powerful to like pass along to our students, that you said when you draw the line is not what you deem the line to be. The line is in my heart.
Right.
Like, I love that. I think, excuse me, especially working with young adults, empowering them more, especially when it comes to their walk with Christ, I think is the missing ingredient. Because like, I remember I went to Catholic school.
Okay.
My freshman year.
All right. This is going to be a good story already.
I know, right?
All right.
I don't even know how I got in.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
Probably why I'm not there now.
Okay.
But no, I had a religion class.
Okay.
Sister Mary was my teacher.
All right. This story is already getting too good.
Love Sister Mary.
Her name was Sister Mary?
Sister Mary.
Okay. All right, man.
Sister Mary.
Right.
Sister Mary didn't look like me.
That's a big name, bro. That's a big name.
Sister
man.
Mary didn't look like me.
Okay. All right.
But Sister Mary felt me.
All right. Sister Mary.
She knew I was
with you.
Christian. Yeah, she knew I was Christian. She would let me like have these open discussions in class. Like that was majority of the class.
Yeah.
I don't remember writing stuff like maybe twice. But I think it was a great practice for me. But it also opened my eyes to like a lot. She was saying like, I remember it was a lesson in particular where she was saying like, you have your child stage where you were pretty much given your religion. You get no choice in the matter.
That's true.
You're just handed your religion.
Okay.
And it's not until like your adolescent years, preferably your later adolescent years,
Well,
before you start to question.
well, you know, we got some adolescents who it's earlier on than that. But,
Yeah,
you know,
they already started.
Yeah, they already started.
But you start to question what you've been given. So, like, of course, you start to question everything.
Yeah.
And then, like, I think it's only at that time you get the freedom to choose. And if I'm Christian and I'm 17, 18, and I start to question, and you know, when it comes to...
Yeah, and if the question is, and if your answer to the question is don't,
It's like,
then
well, what is...
now I got to see what this bad boy about.
You see
Like,
what I'm
yeah.
saying? But I like the fact that like we're taking a step in a direction where like, because we know you're gonna be curious. We've had students that came to us who practiced Catholicism and ended up converting to Christianity.
Yeah.
So it happens. So, but I want to get them to a place, regardless if they deem to be Christian and want to be something else or vice versa. What I want them to do is have the keys to whatever this walk is about to be. What I can do is show you truth. But at the end of the day, in your mind, until you know truth for yourself, it's just my truth.
Well, I want to change truth, right?
Okay.
I like what you can do is show them goodness, right? Because that's
Here
the
we go.
part, right? That's the part that I think is the problem, right? I don't know if we in Christians actually believe that we have the good way, right? Because if you think about it, all right. So if I put two products in front of you, right?
Okay.
And you taste one, and you be like, oh, that's straight. But you taste the other one, you be like, that's amazing, right? The next time you get a chance to choose between those two, what would you choose?
The one that's amazing.
The one that's amazing, right? So what we do though is we say, hey, this mug's amazing. Don't you even try that, right? And I'm like, why? If ours is better, right? If ours is better. And that's what I truly believe, man. I follow Jesus
I see what you're saying.
because it's better, dude. Like, and so stack it next to whatever you want to put it next to. It doesn't matter to me, right? Like, This is better, and I believe that, right? And so I'm like, I don't care what else you tried. When you try this one, oh, it's going to be amazing.
Now your craziness is starting to make sense to me.
Okay, all right. All right, there we go.
It's not the fact that you want to point our students or point young people in the direction of all the toxic stuff that comes with secular music. If there are.
If there is, then. Yeah.
What you're saying is that I believe in what I got so much. You can throw secular music in there. You can throw something else in there. Like Kanye West is not going to deter me from my faith.
It's not, man.
And I'm telling you, if you get a slice of this, too,
if you get a slice of this,
they won't have to worry about Lucy Bird, right?
Bro, if you get a slice of this Jesus, if you get a slice of this Jesus,
just a little Uzi mixtape won't hurt you.
There you go. It's not. You won't choose it. You won't choose it, right? And that's the part, right? But we have to really believe that our lives are better, right? We have to really believe that this is the better way, and that's why I'm saying. For a lot of us as Christians, because of the way we view our Christianity, the better way doesn't start till heaven, right? So you might say, you know what? I don't know if it's better here, right? And so you don't want people to try other stuff, right? And I'm like, oh no, let me be clear. It's better right here. It's better right here, right now. I don't care what else you try. Stack it next. This is Wes Parham. If this is not clear, let me look in the camera for this one. Listen. All right.
You find reasons to get it closer.
I want this. I want you to listen to me. Wes Parham believes, without a shadow of a doubt, that there is no better way to live than the way Jesus said to live. And I believe that if you give me enough time or anybody who genuinely follows Jesus enough time to show you what that life looks like, once you taste it, you'll be like, yeah, man, there's nothing better. There's nothing better. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And that's my concern is, do we as Christians believe that? Because if we believe that, then we wouldn't care what else people tried. We wouldn't care what they tried, right? We would only care about what we could get them to taste, right? Right. Think about it. All right. So I'm good at barbecue. Let me be clear. I am without a shadow of a doubt good at barbecue. Right.
Okay, bro.
And so when people used to come in town, I used to work at this college, and people would come from all over the place, and they've heard about Kansas City, and they'd be like, where's the best barbecue? And I'd be like, well, truthfully, the best barbecue is in my backyard. But
blasphemy.
I'm just telling you, right? But that's the belief that I have in it, right?
Okay.
I don't care what else you taste. Go eat whatever you want to.
All right.
Have you some Gates, some LCs, and 39. I don't care what else you eat, because when you come to Shea Parham,
right.
When you come to Shea Parham, you're going to be like, yo, this right here, this is hitting. What if we felt that way about Jesus? What if I was like, dude, I don't care what you try whatever you want to, because when you come to Shea Jesus, oh, bro, it's going to be dope. But we got to believe it. We have to believe it. And I think since we maybe in a lot of cases don't feel like we've tasted it in that way, right? Because we're waiting for heaven to taste it. We're afraid that other people won't think it's good. And I say, oh man, I wish we would stop that.
Honestly, I think it's just to piggyback off of what you just said. I think a lot of it is predicated on that. I think our success, from what I have observed, I think a lot of what we deem success as Christians are like how many people I can convert.
Yeah.
So if I'm not getting people to come and taste and see that the Lord is good, I'm not a good Christian.
Oh.
When really we should be like, nah, you shouldn't judge it off of that. Judge it off of, did you do what he tell you to do?
Yeah.
Did you tell them the good news?
Well, let them do that part, right? Like we can't, because here's the truth, man. I love when people love to brag about how many people they led to Jesus. I'd be like, do you really know? Because we talked about this. Most of us is one night stand evangelism, right? I just said.
Y'all still mess me up.
Yeah, I know, but it's true. It's one night stand evangelism.
It is.
Bam, you got Jesus tonight. And then we don't know what happened to you afterward, right?
Right.
We really don't. And so for me, you bragged about your conversion numbers. And I'm like, well, I don't really know, right? And I'm not going to say that's not true, right? You may have, right? Because I genuinely believe it's the power of the Holy Spirit, right? And so that could have done that, right? That sure. But what I will tell you is I'm more interested in, can I look in your life right now?
There you go.
And see, are there other people in your life right now who would say, you know what? You're helping me to see how Jesus is good. Right now. I don't care about what you've done. I don't care about how many people you've led on. Right now, can somebody look at your life and say, you know what? You are really helping people to see that Jesus is the better way to live, that Jesus is the best way to live, whether that's teaching them what he taught, whether that's by the way you live, whether that's by caring for people. That's what I'm interested in, right? And that's one of the things, you know, I'm a philosopher, right? So let me be clear.
It bothers me.
But I'm a philosopher, right? I mean, that's what a PhD is. By definition, it's a doctorate in philosophy. I'm a philosopher, right? Sure. So I'm not a theologian, right? Theologians focus on God, hell, angels, devils, all of that kinds of stuff, right? And I'm certainly not. So in that sense, a lot of their focus can actually be the world after here, right? But ancient philosophy, right? We've turned it into this real ethereal, crazy thing nowadays. I want to be clear, right? When we say philosopher now, we think of dudes who's sitting around just thinking, right? But that's not ancient philosophy, right? If we go pre-Socrates, Plato, right? Pre the Milesians, all of them, right? Or even them, right? What you will find is they were not concerned with living ethereal thinking. All of their questions were about how do we help people have the best life they can have here, right? How do we help people have the best life they can have here? And as a philosopher, I look and I say, oh, Jesus told us how we can have the best life we can have here. And so a lot of my study, a lot of my conversations are about the impact that Jesus has on our life right now, not just when we get to eternity, right? And eternity comes into it because Jesus said that eternity comes into it, right? Jesus talked about the kingdom of heaven. Jesus talked about being children of the Father, things like that, right? So he says, hey, if you live in light of those things, it will help this life be better. But he also told us how to live this life. And that's what I care about. How are we helping people to live the best life here? And I look around and sadness is everywhere, right? The General Social Survey says right now, most people feel like they have 0.7 people they can talk to about things that are important, right? You look at research right now being done by almost anybody, and they say depression levels are on the rise. Anxiety is there. People haven't recovered from the pandemic. Kids are struggling. All these kinds of things, right? And I look into this world and I see a lot of sadness and a lot of hurt. And then I say to them, man, Jesus told us that if we live this way, that we can have peace, even when circumstances aren't the way we want them to be. That we can have joy, even when they're not this way. That if you follow him, his yoke is easy, his burden is light, right? So you can have lightness in your spirit as you get ready to go. He says you will love one another in the same way that the Father loves me. You'll have deep relationships with another, right? If we begin to look at what Jesus said you can have and then compare it to what the world is offering, right? Jesus does things like he sits down with Nicodemus and says things like, yo, man, I'm sitting with you. I see you. I want you to have the best life. And then I look on the internet, right? And most of us are so busy looking at whether someone's looking at us that we never see other people, right? And so we're missing whole other groups of people. And I say, oh, man, if we could just do what Jesus said, we wouldn't have that, man. And I believe that Jesus gave us tools for living right here. One of my favorite verses lately, Jesus was like, yo, look, y'all asked me how to pray. Y'all asked me. I didn't start this. Y'all asked me. All right. And he says the whole prayer and then he finishes. He says, and here's what you also ask. Because we think Jesus is praying. He's not praying. He's teaching you what to pray, right? Because he's not praying. Y'all asked him, right? So he says, when you pray, here's what you pray, man. Ask that thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven, right? He says, when you pray, ask God to help you bring what heaven is like here today. And I say, man, what if we could, you people who are hurting from the pandemic, you people who are struggling from political unrest, you people who are wrestling with the environment, you people who are worried about the economy, you people who are living in depression, you people who are living in anxiety, you kids who don't know where this is going to happen or don't know what that's going to happen and not trust. What if I could say to all of you, hey, listen, I'm going to bring heaven. It's going to feel like heaven to you right here. Wouldn't you want to do that? And that's what I'm like, yo, that's what I want to do. That's where I'm like, I know this feels like, and I want to be clear, I'm talking, I know a lot of what we feels like is like, Wes is just trying to be provocative. Oh, he's just trying to give his new spin on the gospel, whatever it is. And I'm like, dude, that breaks my heart that's how a lot of people are going to hear what I'm saying. That's how a lot of people are going to hear what I'm saying is, oh, he's just trying to put a cool new spin on things, that he's just trying to find his. And I'm like, dude, I am not. I can tell you that when I began to follow Jesus in this way, I now can have peace in ways that I've never experienced. I now can have joy in ways I've never experienced. My Christian walk became the lightest it's ever been. And I've been walking with the Lord for 23 years, which isn't long for a lot of people. It's a long time for me, right? Right. I've been walking with the Lord for 23 years. And I would say, yo, this is the best my Christian walk has ever felt, right? I now see people in different ways. I don't ever see people as tasks anymore. I don't see my work as a task. I just got to do my work good enough till somebody says, hey, man, why are you doing good work? I say, no, by doing my work really this way, I'm helping to redeem creation, right? So, because that's what Jesus said to do, right? And so that's how I see it. And so for me, I am not doing this because it's a fun spin. I'm not doing it because it's clever, although it is clever, right? There are fun things we get to do. One of my favorite sayings, all right, I follow Jesus philosophically because philosophically speaking, I think it's the best way, right? That's fun for me to say. It is fun. But to be clear, that's not why I'm doing it. Why I'm doing it is because people are hurting, right? And we can look at the stats on churches. We can look at the nuns increasing. We can look at the disdain for people right now said they have more trust in the government than for pastors. And that feels insane to me, right? That's the crisis we're living in, right? And I'm saying, oh man, what if we could show them that Christians know how to bring heaven here, right? That would be crazy. What if we could show them that Christians know how to bring heaven here? Wouldn't you want everybody to know that? Wouldn't you want everybody to know that? I would want everybody to know that, dude. I would want everybody, and I do. I want everybody to know that. I want you to know that. Jesus taught us how to bring heaven here by saying things like, right? Like by helping us understand eternity different, right? We think of eternity, heaven, as endless moments that are going to occur, right? But Jesus, the way he described heaven, when you think about it, it feels more like one never-ending moment, right? So what if I could say, hey, man, Jesus gave you peace and he taught you how to bring heaven here. So what if you could have one never-ending moment of peace as you walked around the earth, right? Yo, how cold-blooded would that be? How cold-blooded would that be? Think about it. What if you had one never-ending moment of joy as you went through your day, right? That's bringing heaven here. That's bringing heaven here. I'm sorry, man. I went on my little rant now.
No. I'm used to these kind of
yeah,
things.
well, it is, man, I get passionate, and people, and I get passionate because I will tell you, some of the people, right? Some of the people who have been watching some of my content have asked, right? Like, are you just trying to be provocative? Are you just trying to be? And I'm like, dude, I'm not. I promise. I know it may feel like that, right? But you have to provoke a little bit so that people will try to listen for what you're saying instead of just listen to you, right? So you have to kind of say, hey, I want to poke a little bit, right? Just kind of like Jesus did, right? He poked a little bit, right? He didn't throw the whole law out, right? He was like, but you've heard this, right? I'm going to tell you this, right? And that's what I'm saying. And so a lot of what I say may sound provocative, but that's not the point. The point is to say, hey, man, Jesus taught us how to bring heaven here. Let's do it.
I don't think you're being provocative. I think this is the first time the audience is being able to see your heart. And I think more of this is needed.
Okay. Well,
it is. Because I think this is the way that you provoke change and stuff like that. You have to not necessarily provoke people, but give them something that matters. And I think the topics that we're hitting on, that's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to some of the things that matter.
That matter.
Because like you said, there are a lot of people hurting, but there are a lot of people hurting from different things. So I think we should just keep coming back.
Yeah, man. We're going to be back again.
You got me another week?
Another?
Yeah, that's fine, bro.
Yeah,
that's
but
fine.
I consider that a personal victory every week.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But eventually we have to start talking about payment.
Oh,
okay?
well, yeah.
All right.
Well, you need to talk to the crowd then. I ain't got nothing to do with that, man.
That's fine too.
Okay. All right.
We'll figure that out later.
Yeah, okay.
All right. No, but I appreciate it. I do appreciate it. This was fun getting into the weeds. I didn't know it brings this kind of stuff out of you. Maybe we should hit more topics like this.
I mean, I think we got lots. Like I said, I got a game we're going to play next time. I'm going to tell the people. So now we got to obligate it.
Okay.
With Lawrence. It's a fun game. It's called Let's Go. We'll call it.
Okay, so if you get to play that game.
What game do you?
No. I'm going to pick the topic next time.
Okay.
Let's switch it up a little bit.
Okay, all right. I'm with that.
Come on, let's switch it up a little bit.
I'm with that.
So if I make it back next week.
Okay, yeah. I think you're going to be back. But yeah.
I'm going to tell.
Well, thanks for being here this time.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you, sir. All right, man.
Okay. All right, here we go.
Stop.
That's all right.
We were fine, bro.
We're
Why
good.
would you do this?
We're good, man. All right, here we go. All right. I'm trying, man.
Okay.
All right, I'm trying.
Don't look at me.
All right, I'm not looking at you. I'm looking.
You are
Okay.
looking at me.
All right. All right. Nate, we're home. I got it. Okay. All right. Okay.
All right, this is why it's got to be a 30-minute episode.
All right, here we go. All right, here we go. All right.